be in jail for the rest of his life. I think he's probably going to get.
Think he's insane though?
I don't know. I don't even think it matters. I mean, it's a lot of it is.
But then it's just another Epstein. It's another Ghislaine Maxwell, where somebody gets indicted and nobody else indicted for trafficking kids to.
Right, to no one. Right. We're like, what is the next crazy thing that's going to explode in the news? Is Bill Clinton's going to have an OnlyFans? Like, what is going to happen? What is the next thing that's going to make us all go, what the f? Like, what the f is going on?
It's coming.
Like, you know, how many guys were on video saying, "Ain't no party like a Diddy party"? How many people like openly talked about being there?
LeBron?
Yeah, how about Ashton Kutcher? All these people. Like, you guys all went, you didn't see nothing?
Joe Rogan just uncovered something deeply unsettling about Diddy's situation. And once it's said out loud, it can't be ignored. This isn't just about one man falling from grace. The trail runs upward, straight through layers of influence, pointing toward people who never seem to face real questions. What Joe discussed on his podcast may have crossed a quiet line that most stay far away from. In this video, we're breaking down the full power structure, starting with Diddy and moving up to the figures who always stay protected. These are the names that rarely show up in headlines, no matter how loud the noise gets. Joe bringing this up publicly raised eyebrows, because some conversations aren't meant to leave closed rooms. While Diddy sits behind bars waiting for trial, many assume the story ends there, but that's far from the truth. What came out on Joe's show suggests a much larger network at play. These connections stretch beyond fame and money, reaching into spaces most people never get to see. And once you understand how far this really goes, it changes how you look at everything.
Going to be in jail for the rest of his life. I think he's probably going to get.
Think he's insane though?
I don't know. I don't even think it matters. I mean, it's a lot of it is.
But then it's just another Epstein. It's another Ghislaine Maxwell, where somebody gets indicted and nobody else indicted for trafficking kids to.
Right, to no one. Right. We're like, what is the next crazy thing that's going to explode in the news? Is Bill Clinton's going to have an OnlyFans? Like, what is going to happen? What is the next thing that's going to make us all go, what the f? Like, what the f is going on?
It's coming.
Like, you know, how many guys were on video saying, "Ain't no party like a Diddy party"? How many people like openly talked about being there?
LeBron?
Yeah, how about Ashton Kutcher? All these people. Like, you guys all went, you didn't see nothing?
Before we get into who's really pulling the strings, you gotta understand what Diddy is actually accused of, because without that context, none of this adds up. This part sets the stage for everything that comes next. Right now, Diddy is locked up facing serious federal charges. Prosecutors say he allegedly used money, status, and influence to put people in situations they didn't agree to. And this is where things turn disturbing. Investigators claim there were secret parties where guests were allegedly impaired and secretly recorded without knowing what was happening. Imagine thinking you're just at a private event, only to find out later it was being used as leverage against you. Over time, more than 120 individuals have reportedly come forward with allegations. Some of those claims involve people who were underage at the time, which is being handled as a major focus of the investigation. That's the part that made a lot of people stop brushing this off. A recent Netflix documentary titled The Reckoning helped push these accusations back into the spotlight, forcing the conversation into the open. What most people missed is this: Diddy wasn't moving solo, and he definitely wasn't sitting at the top. That's where things shift. During one podcast episode, Joe Rogan started lining up dots others avoided touching. He brought up Jeffrey Epstein, and suddenly the similarities felt impossible to ignore. The tone changed fast. One guest straight up asked, "Is he gonna sing? Like, is he about to name names?" That's when Rogan paused and pointed out something that should bother everyone. The same pattern keeps showing up. One person gets charged for trafficking, but nobody else ever seems to fall with them. Think about it. Epstein was convicted of trafficking, but officially, to who? Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted for trafficking too, yet the list stops there, and that silence speaks loud. To who? Again, no one. Does that even sound logical to you? Because it doesn't add up at all. The pattern stays the same every single time. The people at the very top always manage to slip away untouched, like they're playing by a whole different set of rules. That's when Rogan started naming names, big ones, famous faces who've openly talked about being around Diddy's parties back in the day. We all remember those clips, the jokes, the hype, the ain't no party like a Diddy party energy. But Rogan flipped the angle and asked the uncomfortable question. Everyone was there, so how did nobody see anything? That silence says plenty. Either people noticed what was happening and stayed quiet, or they didn't ask questions they didn't want answers to. There's really no neutral zone when power, access, and influence collide like that. Now here's where the focus shifts. If Diddy was running his own lane, then the real authority sits higher up. The label executives, the corporate gatekeepers, the people who control the money, the access, and the protection. This is where things stop looking like random chaos and start looking structured. According to one civil lawsuit, major labels didn't just benefit from these artists. They allegedly provided the infrastructure that allowed certain behavior to stay hidden. Not just music companies, but powerful shields. And once those documents surfaced, the tone changed fast.
These words would come out my mouth, but Candace Owens is onto something, and that did not feel comfortable at all. So Candace says the reason mainstream news is not picking up this lawsuit, is not paying attention to Diddy at all, is because of this man right here, Lucian Grandage. He is one of the most powerful men in Hollywood and music. And he been up in Diddy's room. So this man right here is Sir Lucian Charles Grandage. He's been the CEO of Universal Music Group since 2010, so you know he done seen some shit. So I had to go to the damn documents. I had to see if this man was actually named, and he is. As you can see, it says Lucian Charles Grandage, and it also says Universal Music Group. On top of that, it says Ethiopia. I cannot fuck up her last name. I refuse to. But she was also a big person in Universal Music Group. And then Christina Coramham, Lord forgive. But she was like Diddy's second hand.
The filings claim that certain executives were aware of private gatherings tied to Diddy and were present at some of them. They also allege that substances were misused at these events, raising serious concerns about consent and safety. Claims involving individuals who were not of legal age are now being treated as the most serious part of the case. And if even a fraction of that is true, then this isn't just a celebrity scandal. It's a system problem, right? And this is where Candace Owens stepped in and raised eyebrows. She questioned why major news outlets barely touched this story at all. Her point was simple. Some figures in music and media hold enormous influence over what gets amplified and what quietly disappears. When someone controls access, money, and relationships, stories don't always move on merit alone. The lawsuit names several executives connected to a major music corporation, alleging they were aware of questionable behavior and failed to act. According to the filings, these individuals were present at events tied to the accusations and allegedly looked the other way. The claim is that when billions are involved, accountability often takes a back seat. That's the ugly reality critics keep pointing to. This helps explain why you're not seeing nonstop coverage on major networks. Power doesn't just sit in front of cameras, it shapes the narrative behind them. When it comes to Diddy's inner circle, one name keeps floating into the conversation, and it's Jay-Z. Their bond runs deep in the industry, not just business, but personal loyalty too. Diddy once said only two people could call him by his real name, his mother and Jay-Z.
One person.
Oh, go on.
And I call him Sean. That's Jay-Z. We call each other Sean.
Okay.
Yeah. Nobody else could call me Sean.
He's the only person who's Sean approved.
There's not a single person that
outside
should be,
of family.
that should be outside of my mother.
Okay,
That should be calling me. Yeah, they should be calling me Sean.
That detail alone made people pause and start connecting dots. It shows a level of closeness most industry relationships never reach. Then there's Jaguar Wright. She's known for saying what others won't. During an interview with Piers Morgan, she made strong claims about both men and how power has allegedly shaped the industry for years. What raised alarms was how fast that interview vanished online, almost like it was scrubbed. Wright asked a question many people have whispered for a long time: how certain figures can sit for major interviews and never face tough questions about long-running rumors. She accused powerful names of harming the industry's growth and culture. And when reports surfaced that a high-profile attorney linked to Jay-Z was connected to Diddy's legal situation, people started wondering, coincidence, loyalty, or something deeper happening off-camera. Jay-Z has never publicly responded to these long-running whispers, and in today's climate, silence doesn't come off as neutral anymore. It feels deliberate, like a calculated decision to say nothing at all. When powerful people stay quiet, it often raises more questions than answers. Joe Rogan brings this up often on his podcast. At the highest levels, elites don't handle problems themselves. They hire elite legal teams, crisis managers, and fixers whose entire job is to make uncomfortable stories fade away. When the money is unlimited, so are the options for damage control. Take high-profile attorneys most people have never heard of. That's not accidental. These lawyers represent massive names across entertainment and business, quietly linking the entire industry together. They're the ones drafting airtight NDAs that keep people silent for decades. 20, 30 years go by and the truth never sees daylight. In that world, information is everything. Whoever controls it controls the outcome. If the decision is made that your story won't be told, then it simply doesn't move forward. That's the system Rogan keeps circling back to. Whenever Rogan has former intelligence figures on his show, the same comparison keeps coming up. Diddy's alleged parties and Jeffrey Epstein's operation. Not because the situations are identical, but because the structure feels familiar. The theory isn't that Diddy created this whole thing alone. The theory is that he played a role. Think about it. If recordings were allegedly being made at private events, the real question becomes, who were they for? Who benefited from that material? That's where the conversation shifts upward. The idea is that powerful figures stay hidden while others take the public heat. Politicians, executives, global influencers, people who never appear on the surface. And if claims about large amounts of recorded material are even partially accurate, then this starts to resemble something much bigger than one scandal. At that point, it stops looking like chaos and starts looking like a system built to last.
Between Diddy and Epstein, it's good. There's probably several thousand hours of footage here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I should say, I think you voted for
I'd like to see a matchup of those, call it the top 100 puppet masters on the Epstein client list.
Do you think there's some overlap?
Strong overlap. Strong overlap.
When are we going to see that list, do you think?
I don't know.
Will that ever come out, do you think?
You know, I think part of why Kamala is getting so much support is that if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public.
Yes.
And some of those billionaires behind Kamala are terrified of that outcome.
Yeah. Do you think Reid Hoffman's uncomfortable?
Yes. And Gates.
And Gates.
Yeah.
And I only ask that because you just look at them and you're like, that's a nervous person right there. I don't know. I mean, I assume you know them. Yeah.
Yes.
One reason certain political figures get massive backing from billionaires is fear, not ideology. Fear. The fear that if the wrong person gains power, old lists and sealed files could start surfacing. That's where names tied to past scandals suddenly feel uncomfortable, not because of proof, but because of what might come out. During one conversation, Rogan brought this up while talking with Elon Musk. When asked whether some tech elites seemed nervous about potential revelations, Elon didn't dance around it. His response was short and telling. Yes, that moment landed heavy because it suggested anxiety at the highest levels. This is where the facilitator theory comes into play. Figures like Epstein and Diddy allegedly created protected spaces, environments where powerful people could move freely without public scrutiny. Not clubs, not parties, controlled zones. And that's where the danger sits. These weren't just social gatherings. According to the theory, they functioned as honeypots, places where influential people could be observed, compromised, and quietly boxed in. Rogan put it bluntly. Either this was connected to some intelligence-style operation, or it was one of the most calculated power plays ever created. Phones away, guards up, cameras everywhere. The real question Rogan raised wasn't about guilt. It was about hierarchy. Was Diddy acting on his own, or was there someone above him calling shots? That's the part nobody wants to touch. Elon also brought up Jennifer Lopez, not politically, but in terms of proximity. The point wasn't accusation, it was credibility. If someone was that close for that long, where were the warnings? Where were the red flags? J-Lo and Diddy were together publicly, privately, everywhere. Yet no alarms were raised. That uncomfortable silence forced people to confront a hard truth. How much gets ignored when power, fame, and access are involved? If someone was deep in the inner circle and never spoke up, what does that really say? Either they truly had no idea what was happening, which a lot of people find hard to buy, or they knew something and chose silence. And if they stayed quiet, the question becomes why? Fear, loyalty, self-preservation, or protecting someone higher up the ladder? Those are the questions people should actually be asking. During federal searches of Diddy's properties, investigators reportedly seized an enormous amount of recorded material. We're not talking about a few files. Commentators say it could be thousands of hours. People like Jaguar Wright and Gene Deal have spoken about how this kind of footage allegedly works, not just as leverage, but as insurance. The idea is simple. You don't need to threaten anyone if the material already exists. Just knowing it's there keeps everyone in line. And now, rumors are circulating that this footage is being quietly transferred, which has some very powerful names feeling real pressure. That kind of panic doesn't come from nothing. Megyn Kelly raised an uncomfortable point that stopped a lot of people cold. Despite widely circulated footage showing Diddy involved in a violent incident, that specific moment isn't part of the charges being pursued. If something publicly known isn't being addressed, it makes people wonder what else is being shielded. So the real questions multiply. Who has the recordings now? What's actually on them? And what would happen if well-known figures were suddenly exposed doing things they never intended the public to see? Maybe the most unsettling part isn't what's already out there. Maybe it's what's still hidden. When cameras are banned, secrets are traded, and silence is rewarded, who's really holding control? That's why some viewers noticed something odd in a recent documentary tied to 50 Cent. Strategic editing choices stood out, including brief appearances of respected public figures during conversations about Diddy's events. That alone was enough to make people rewind and ask why. A lot of people online don't believe that moment was accidental at all. They think 50 Cent was sending a message, subtle, coded, but intentional. Not something spelled out, but something meant for people who know how to read between the lines. When Bishop T.D. Jakes was finally asked about rumors linking him to Diddy's circles, his response only made things louder. Instead of directly denying anything, he brushed it off with, "Keep it moving." Then he added that even if something like that were true, repentance has the power to cover sin, before saying he didn't need to repent for this. That didn't land as confidence to a lot of viewers. To many, it sounded like sidestepping the question rather than answering it. Jaguar Wright reacted almost immediately. She claimed that if a religious leader was present in those circles, it would be for one of two reasons: money or access. She described these gatherings as leverage zones, places where influence is built and later used to control people. Former bodyguard Gene Deal raised similar concerns. He questioned why a respected spiritual figure would even be adjacent to parties insiders describe as questionable. He also hinted at rumors of recordings that could eventually surface, saying if that happens, the conversation changes fast. At that point, it wouldn't be speculation, it would be evidence. Some independent researchers have started mapping this situation like a pyramid. When laid out that way, it's unsettling. At the lower levels, you see powerful celebrities, wealthy, influential, but not untouchable. Above them sit the gatekeepers, executives, and media figures who control access to fame and opportunity. And at the top, according to these theories, is a small, mostly unseen layer of influence. One that doesn't just touch music or entertainment, but reaches into politics, technology, and even faith-based institutions. This idea isn't new either. Years ago, comedian Dave Chappelle tried to warn people, but most didn't want to hear it. He didn't describe the entertainment world as just shady contracts or greedy executives. He called it a trap, a system built entirely on control. When people asked why he didn't just take his show somewhere else, his answer was cold and honest. He said it would be like running from one plantation to another. Different owner, same chains. And if someone with his level of success and leverage still felt boxed in, that should make everyone pause. What does that say about artists, workers, and insiders just trying to survive without getting crushed by the machine? So after laying all this out, from Diddy's alleged blackmail tactics to corporate gatekeepers like Universal Music Group, from industry alliances to Epstein-style parallels, from religious influence to the so-called power pyramid, what do you think is really happening here? Is this all just coincidence piling up at the same time? Or are we finally seeing cracks in something way bigger than any one person? That's the real question. I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and tell me what you believe is actually going on. If this breakdown made you think, hit like, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and keep the conversation moving. Stay curious, stay questioning, and I'll see you in the next one.